You've met her before, the independent one, the emotionally composed one, the woman who doesn't flinch when men try to impress her. She doesn't need your money. She doesn't need your attention. She doesn't even need your approval. And that's exactly why she unsettles you. Most men respond by pushing harder. More texts, more compliments, more intensity. And that's where they lose. Because strong women don't respond to pressure. They shut down. What you see as coldness is often protection. What you call difficult is usually discipline. The mistake isn't that you're trying, it's that you're trying the wrong way. There's a psychological sequence that lowers her guard without forcing it. And once you understand the structure behind her strength, you stop chasing and start being chosen. Let's begin with something most men get wrong from the very first second. A difficult woman is used to controlling her environment. She decides who enters her space. She decides who gets access to her time. She decides who matters. So if you stand on the sidelines, waiting for the perfect moment, hoping she notices you, she won't. Not because she's cruel, but because passive energy doesn't register in her world. But here's the other extreme. If you walk up trying to dominate the room, speaking too loudly, leaning too aggressively, pushing for her attention, she will freeze emotionally. Strong women have a finely tuned radar for insecurity disguised as dominance. There's a difference between controlled power and social aggression. In 2008, Alexander Todorov and his team at Princeton demonstrated that human beings form judgments about confidence and dominance within 100 to 200 milliseconds of seeing someone's face. That means, before you even finish your first sentence, she has already categorized you, not based on your words, based on your regulation. Controlled dominance is quiet. It's grounded. It's eye contact without staring. It's speaking clearly without rushing. It's standing tall without invading space. Aggression, on the other hand, leaks. It leaks through tension in your jaw, through overcompensation in your tone, through the need to impress. If you don't step forward, you've already lost. But if you step forward like a man who needs validation, you eliminate yourself. Approach her directly. State your interest calmly. No theatrics, no performance. Because assertiveness is attractive. Aggression is insecurity in disguise. Here's what you must understand about a difficult woman. She is used to being the most confident person in the room. She has built her identity around self-sufficiency, around competence, around not needing approval. So when a man approaches her, she subconsciously scans for one thing. Does he need something from me? Most men fail right here. They talk too much about their success, their income, their gym routine, their ambitions. They try to prove they are high value. But the harder a man tries to prove his worth, the more he reveals that he doubts it. There is a psychological difference between internal validation and external validation. A man with internal validation doesn't perform. He doesn't seek reaction. He speaks because he chooses to, not because he needs to be impressive. And that is what triggers curiosity. Curiosity is powerful. It activates dopamine, the same neurotransmitter linked to anticipation and reward. When she senses a man who is steady, self-contained, and not fishing for approval, her mind starts asking questions. Who is he? Why is he so calm? What does he know that I don't? Now compare two men. One talks endlessly about his achievements, laughs too loudly, fills every silence with noise. The other listens, smiles slightly, shares selectively, holds his frame. The first man wants to be liked. The second man doesn't need to be liked. And that is precisely why he is interesting. Women are rarely attracted to men who need them. They are drawn to men who don't need them, but choose them. And that difference is everything. Now let's talk about a mistake that quietly destroys attraction: oversharing. You meet her once, and within 20 minutes she knows your childhood trauma, your career struggles, your 5-year plan, and the name of your dog. You think you're being open, honest, authentic. But what you're actually doing is collapsing the tension. Attraction thrives on space, on discovery, on gradual unfolding. There's something in psychology called the curiosity gap. When the brain senses incomplete information, dopamine rises, anticipation builds. We lean forward, we want to know more. But when everything is revealed too quickly, the mystery dies, and with it, the intrigue. A difficult woman is constantly evaluating. She's not just listening to your words, she's observing your restraint, your pacing, your emotional control. When you speak too much, too fast, you signal anxiety, you signal urgency, and urgency often reads as insecurity. The man who talks excessively is usually trying to secure connection. The man who is comfortable with silence is already secure. Share selectively. Let conversations breathe. End interactions before they lose energy. Leave her with a question instead of a full biography. Because here's the truth. The man who talks too much reveals his insecurity. The man who reveals himself slowly builds anticipation. Now that she notices you, the real test begins. Now that she notices you, this is where most men sabotage themselves. They focus on impressing her. You need to focus on understanding her. A difficult woman has layers, ambition, standards, history, private fears she doesn't show in public. And if you only engage with the surface, her looks, her status, her independence, you will remain on the surface. Go deeper. What drives her? What frustrates her? What excites her when no one is watching? But here's the key. You must approach her without judgment. No assumptions. No listening to rumors. No projecting your past experiences onto her. In 1999, Dr. John Gottman's research on long-term relationship stability showed that emotional validation, the ability to acknowledge and understand a partner's internal experience, is one of the strongest predictors of bonding and trust. When a woman feels genuinely understood, her nervous system relaxes, oxytocin increases, defensive posture softens. And here's where men get confused. You're not interrogating her. You're not analyzing her out loud. You're not trying to fix her. You're observing. You ask questions not to sound intelligent, but to understand her internal world. And when she speaks, you listen without trying to one-up her story or redirect the spotlight. Most men listen to respond. Very few listen to understand. A strong woman is used to being admired. She is not used to being understood. If you become the man who sees beyond her armor, without trying to tear it down, she will begin to lean toward you. Because you are no longer just another man trying to win her. You are a man trying to know her. If you truly want to move from curiosity to connection, you must step into her world. Not to impress her, not to invade her, but to understand the rhythm of her life. A difficult woman has built a life she is proud of. Her routines, her passions, her professional ambitions. These are not accessories. They are extensions of her identity. And when you show interest in what matters to her, you are signaling respect. There is a psychological principle called the similarity attraction effect, introduced by Don Byrne in 1971. The research consistently shows that perceived similarity increases liking and emotional comfort. When we discover shared values or interests, our brains register safety. Safety is not boring. Safety is stabilizing. If she loves the outdoors, go explore with her. If she values intellectual conversation, engage her mind. If she enjoys discovering new places, introduce her to something thoughtful, not flashy, thoughtful. But here is the boundary most men cross. Do not fake compatibility. Do not pretend to love what you secretly resent. A strong woman can detect incongruence faster than you think. When your behavior doesn't align with your identity, attraction fractures. You are not trying to merge into her life. You are allowing your world and hers to intersect. That intersection, where her interests and your presence overlap naturally, is where bonding begins. Support her world. Don't invade it. At this stage, most men make the fatal mistake. They rush. They feel momentum building, good conversations, shared laughter, subtle chemistry, and suddenly they accelerate emotionally. They confess too much. They declare too soon. They try to secure what hasn't had time to grow. A difficult woman has seen this pattern before. She knows what it looks like when a man gets emotionally carried away. And the moment you escalate too fast, she mentally categorizes you. Another guy. Premature emotional escalation reduces perceived value. When you offer exclusivity, devotion, or dramatic expressions of affection before real depth is formed, it signals imbalance. It tells her your emotions are running ahead of reality. And strong women do not trust unstable emotional pacing. Restraint is rare. That is why it stands out. You don't need to declare your feelings after 2 dates. You don't need to flood her with constant reassurance. You don't need to prove how serious you are before she has shown you equal depth. Value does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself slowly. When you move at a controlled pace, steady, grounded, intentional, you separate yourself from the crowd of men who chase intensity instead of building connection. And then comes the hardest part. Her walls. Now we arrive at the part most men misinterpret. Her walls. You see her independence, her composure, her ability to walk away without flinching, and you assume she's emotionally unavailable. That assumption is lazy. Strength and emotional distance are not the same thing. Many strong women develop their independence out of necessity, not preference. Somewhere in her past, relying too much on someone may have cost her. Maybe it was inconsistency, maybe betrayal, maybe simply disappointment repeated enough times to build armor. Attachment theory, first introduced by John Bowlby and later expanded by Hazan and Shaver in 1987, explains that people who lean toward avoidant attachment often appear hyper-independent. They value autonomy. They minimize emotional dependence, not because they don't feel deeply, but because vulnerability once felt unsafe. So when you encounter a woman who seems difficult, what you're often seeing is protection, not rejection. Guarded does not mean cold. It means cautious. And here's the paradox. She does not need you. But she may want someone, if that someone feels safe. If you react to her guarded nature with frustration, pressure, or insecurity, you confirm her fear. You become another example of why emotional distance is necessary. But if you remain steady, not chasing, not retreating, not demanding, you create contrast. You become calm in the face of her defenses. And that is what unsettles her walls. Because walls are built to block chaos, not stability. Here is where emotional intelligence becomes more important than confidence. You cannot rush a guarded woman, but you also cannot retreat at the first sign of resistance. There is a rhythm to this. Many men misread temporary distance as rejection. She pulls back for a day. She takes longer to respond. She seems more reserved after a vulnerable conversation. And immediately, the man panics. He either chases harder or disappears completely. Both reactions are driven by fear. Human beings are wired with a deep need for autonomy. When someone feels emotionally cornered, their nervous system shifts into protection mode. Pressure doesn't create closeness. It creates withdrawal. If she feels rushed, analyzed, or emotionally obligated before she is ready, she will not argue. She will fade. That's the danger. A strong woman doesn't explode when she feels pressured. She emotionally disappears. So what do you do instead? You remain steady. You continue showing interest, but you don't demand reciprocation on your timeline. You respect her space without turning cold. You let silence exist without trying to immediately fill it. Persistence is not chasing. Persistence is consistency without pressure. You're not proving your worth. You're demonstrating emotional regulation. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. If she feels pressured, she will emotionally disappear. But if she feels free, and you are still there, calm and grounded, she will begin to associate you with safety instead of stress. And safety is what lowers defenses. This is the final layer. Trust. And trust is not built through grand gestures. It is built through consistency. A difficult woman does not fall in love because you impressed her. She falls in love because she feels emotionally secure around you. And security is created through repeated micro-actions, showing up when you say you will, keeping your tone steady, respecting boundaries without resentment. You offer your time. You offer your attention. But you do not offer it as a transaction. You are not secretly thinking, if I do this, she owes me intimacy. That energy kills trust instantly. True stability has no hidden agenda. And then there's the phrase men love to rush. I love you. Listen carefully. When you say it too soon, it doesn't sound romantic. It sounds unstable. It signals that your emotions have outrun the reality of the connection. Strong women don't respond to intensity that lacks foundation. They test for durability. Trust builds when your behavior remains aligned over time, when your interest doesn't spike and crash, when your calm doesn't disappear under stress. And here is the shift that changes everything. The moment she realizes you are not trying to possess her, not trying to control her, not trying to secure her prematurely, she begins to choose you. Because the strongest women do not fall for pressure. They fall for safety. You've seen the pattern now. A difficult woman is not conquered. She is observed, understood, met with strength, not noise. First, you attracted her attention without losing your frame, not by overpowering her, but by regulating yourself. Then, you connected with her world, not by performing, but by listening, by seeing beyond the surface. And finally, you approached her walls not with force, but with stability. You didn't rush. You didn't pressure. You didn't collapse into emotional chaos. You remained steady. That is the difference. Weak men try to impress strong women. Grounded men make strong women feel safe. And here's the truth most men avoid. You don't win a woman like this. You become the kind of man she chooses. Because when she senses that you don't need to control her, that you don't panic when she pulls back, that your emotions are disciplined, something shifts. Her nervous system relaxes. Her defenses lower. Not because you forced them down, but because they no longer feel necessary. She stops scanning you for instability. She stops bracing for pressure. She stops preparing to walk away. And instead, she leans in. Not dramatically, not impulsively, but intentionally. That's the kind of attraction that lasts. Understand this clearly. Intensity may spark attention, but stability sustains desire. Anyone can create chemistry for a night. Very few men can create emotional safety for a lifetime. And the woman you call difficult? She isn't looking for a thrill. She's looking for a man whose presence doesn't disrupt her peace. So the real question is not, how do I make her fall? The real question is, can I become the kind of man who doesn't fall apart? Because when you master yourself, your pace, your reactions, your need for validation, you stop chasing outcomes. And that's when outcomes start moving toward you. If this shifted your perspective, subscribe. This channel exists for one reason, to help you move from chasing to leading. Comment below. Which phase are you in right now with her? Are you still trying to get her attention? Or are you standing in front of her walls? And share this with the man who keeps mistaking intensity for connection. Stop chasing. Start leading.